The trees were all lined up in a row, perfectly straight, and they were all at least 100 years old. I couldn't help but shiver as I looked down the path between them. It was like something out of a horror movie, and in a way, it kind of was. It was the summer before my senior year of high school, and my friends and I had decided to spend one last summer together, doing whatever we wanted. We were all going off to college the next fall, and we weren't sure where our separate paths would lead us, so we decided to make the most of our last few weeks together. We spent most of our time at the lake, swimming and sunbathing, and just enjoying each other's company. But one day, we decided to do something different. We got in our cars and drove into the woods, following a barely there dirt road that we'd seen while walking in the woods one day. The road eventually came to an end at a clearing with a bunch of old trees in it, and that's when I started to get freaked out. The trees were all lined up in a row, perfectly straight, and they were all at least 100 years old. It was like something out of a horror movie, and in a way, it kinda was. The scariest part, though, was that we weren't alone. As we stood there in the middle of the clearing, we could have sworn we heard footsteps in the leaves crunching behind us. We turned around and saw nothing, but the sound continued. It was slow and deliberate, like someone or something was stalking us. We started to run then, and the creature seemed to move faster, keeping pace with us easily. We didn't dare look back. We could hear its footsteps behind us, getting closer and closer. As we ran, we could hear the creature making strange noises, like a mix between a growl and a scream. It sounded inhuman, like something out of a nightmare. We screamed ourselves, and the creature responded with another ear-piercing screech. We burst out of the trees and into the open field, and didn't stop running until we got back to the car. We piled into the car and slammed the doors and the windows shut. We locked it, too, even though none of us had brought our keys. We just kept on screaming until we were too exhausted to continue. Safe inside the car, we could still hear the creature outside. It paced back and forth outside the car, growling and screeching. It banged on the windows and tried the door handles, but it couldn't get in. We sat there for what felt like hours. The creature outside of the car, the whole time, growling and pacing. Eventually, though, the growls became quieter and the pacing slowed down and finally stopped. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. We just sat there in silence, listening to the creature outside of the car. After what felt like an eternity, the silence was broken only by our ragged breathing and the pounding of our hearts. Finally, we dared to unlock the doors and step out of the car. We looked around, but there was no sign of the creature anywhere. It was like it had vanished into thin air. We never went back to that clearing, but sometimes at night, I still hear the creature's footsteps in my dreams. And sometimes when I wake up, I can still hear its growls echoing in my ears. I know that if I ever go back to that clearing, I'll never escape. It's only a matter of time before it catches me and drags me into the woods. I know that if I ever go back to that clearing, I won't come back. That's why I haven't gone back. The old woman opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then she realized that she was lying on a cold stone floor. Her arms and legs were spread apart, and something hard was stuffed into her mouth. She tried to scream, but only a hoarse whisper came out of her throat. "Help me!" A tall, thin man with sunken cheeks and a scraggly beard was standing over her, holding a bloody meat cleaver. The old woman's eyes widened in terror when she recognized him. It was Rumman, her neighbor, a quiet, unassuming man who kept to himself. But now his face was contorted in a manic grin, revealing teeth that were unnaturally sharp and long. "Rumman, what are you doing?" she croaked, her voice barely a whisper. "She," he hissed, advancing towards her with the meat cleaver raised high. "It's time for your punishment." The old woman's mind raced. What had she done to deserve this? Then she remembered the nosy neighbor, always prying into other people's business, always sticking his long, bony nose where it didn't belong. He had been like this since she knew him, always angry, always violent. She had tried to stay away from him, but he lived next door, and there were constant arguments over property lines and missing cats. The last thing she remembered was arguing with him about his mangy cat, Shirkan, who had gotten into her henhouse and killed several of her chicks. She had screamed at him, calling him a lousy, greedy bastard, and he had stormed off, vowing revenge. Now she understood. This was the revenge she had promised. He had broken into her house, tied her up, and left her here to die. She closed her eyes, waiting for the blow that would end her life. But it never came. Instead, she heard a sickening thud followed by a low growl. She opened her eyes to see Rahman standing over something in the corner, his back towards her. What was that sound? Had he hit his head? Was he trying to break into one of the urns on the shelf? No, she saw movement, something moving in the shadows. A small, emaciated dog emerged, its ribs showing through its matted fur. It licked its chops, revealing a pink tongue and rows of sharp teeth. The dog barked once, then twice, and Rumman stroked its head, his fingers digging into its fur. "Good boy," he said, his voice a low growl. "Good. Strong boy. Now go and finish what I started." The dog snarled, revealing its bared teeth. It advanced towards the old woman, who screamed and thrashed, trying to free herself from her bonds. The dog circled her, growling, then lunged. She screamed as the dog's teeth tore into her arm. Blood flowed freely, mixing with the dust on the floor. The old woman cried out, her voice hoarse and weak. "Raman, please, I beg of you, stop it." He emerged from the shadows, his face twisted in a cruel smile. "You should have thought of that before meddling in my business." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her to the mercy of the rabid dog. The old woman cried out again, this time in pain. She struggled against her bonds, but they were too tight. She could feel the dog's hot, fetid breath on her neck, the scrape of its claws on the stone floor as it moved closer. She closed her eyes, waiting for the end, but it never came. When she opened her eyes, she saw the dog standing back, growling softly. It looked at her for a long moment, then turned and trotted away. The old woman sat there for a while, her arm bleeding, her body trembling. As the pain started to fade, she realized that she was alone. Where was Raman? Where had the dog gone? Then she noticed a small, dark stain spreading on the floor around her. She reached out a shaky hand and touched it. It was still wet. Relief flooded through her, followed by a surge of anger. Raman might have left, but he would pay for what he had done. She would make sure of it. With newfound determination, she struggled to her feet, ignoring the pain in her arm. She stumbled out of the room, her bare feet hitting the cold stone floor. As she walked, she could hear the sound of chanting coming from the courtyard outside. The villagers, they were probably looking for her. She had been missing for hours, but before she could make it to the door, she heard a voice behind her. Going somewhere, the old woman whirled around to see Raman standing there, a cruel smile on his face. He gestured to the bloody meat cleaver in his hand. "This is for the dog. Now it's time for you to join him." The old woman screamed and tried to flee, but it was too late. She could feel the hot breath on her neck, the scrape of his nails as he closed in, the glint of the meat cleaver in his eyes. I was home alone for Christmas one year when I decided to watch a horror movie marathon. The power went out, of course, right in the middle of the scariest movie. So I got up to grab some candles and a flashlight. While rummaging around, I came across my mom's old photo albums. I flipped through the years until I landed on one particular picture. It was my brother and me when we were 4 years old. We were standing in front of our Christmas tree, and the ornaments were mismatched and slightly melted. That was because our dad had a weird habit of collecting plastic trophies and figurines that didn't quite fit the theme of Christmas. But he loved to put them on the tree anyway. One of those trophies was shaped like a hand with a big red gem in the palm. And in the photo, I was reaching out to grab it. As a kid, I never liked that trophy. I thought the hand was creepy and the red jewel was a blood-colored pus-filled wound. But what really freaked me out was the finger on the left. It was missing its tip, and there was a tiny white mark where the rest of it should have been. I remember shoving my brother when we were posing for the photo. He was blocking the TV, and I wanted to watch Rudolph. And now, looking at the photo, I noticed something else. My brother was smiling, but there was something odd about it. His left eye was completely black, like the pupil was entirely filled with ink. My brother had died 2 years before this picture was taken. He drowned in our backyard pool when we were 2. After his death, my parents stopped celebrating Christmas altogether. This one photo was the only remnant of that holiday cheer that they kept, and I couldn't understand why. Then I looked closer at the photo and realized why. My brother wasn't supposed to be in that picture. He shouldn't have been there, but in the photo, he was smiling widely, completely blocking the TV. When I look closely at the screen, I can make out what's being shown. It's an old black and white picture of a boy who looks exactly like my brother, except in the photo, he has all of his fingers and he's not smiling. I tried to convince myself that this was just a trick of the light, but then I saw my brother's reflection in the TV. His body was perfectly still, but his head was turned slightly, and he was staring directly at me. At that moment, the candle in my hand flickered and went out. I screamed and dropped it. And then I heard a voice coming from the other side of the room. It said, "Don't look at the photo. Don't look at the photo." I don't know whose voice it was, but it sounded like it was coming from the Christmas tree, as if it was my dad or maybe even my brother. I ran out of the house and into the backyard. I was shivering and freezing. I didn't want to go back inside, but then I started to calm down, and I thought to myself, what am I doing? It's just a photo. It's probably just a really old photo of your brother. You're letting your imagination run wild. But then I looked back at the window, and I saw the Christmas tree. And in the reflection, I could see that photo hanging on the wall. The TV was off, so there was no way that I could have imagined it. And as I stood there watching, I saw a movement. The Christmas tree was swaying back and forth slowly, like someone or something was standing in front of it and breathing heavily. Then I saw the ornaments start falling off. They were flying through the air and shattering on the floor. The reflection on the window was gone. I didn't know what to do, so I ran away. I've never gone back to that house. I don't even know if it's still there. I've been searching online for that photo, but I can't find it anywhere. I hope that whoever lives there now can hear me. Please don't look at the photo. Please don't look at the photo.